I do still stand by everything I've said here, but I'm willing to be proven wrong. In so many ways, Elden Ring Nightreign is the perfect counterpoint to my opinions on the original Elden Ring, reigniting my enthusiasm for the gameplay and recapturing my imagination. It places its focus solely on mechanical combat, and while doing so outshines Elden Ring so much that I struggle to return to it. Nightreign is a multiplayer roguelite Souls game that uses the core combat system of Elden Ring and layers them onto a lightly procedural map while making major adjustments to the player's options in that combat system. Online multiplayer is emphasized heavily, as are, in major deviation from previous titles, distinct characters with unique aesthetics and mechanical designs, no character customization, and no personal builds. In the player's hub world, the Round Table Hold, they can matchmake with other players and select a raid boss to challenge. They'll be dropped into a map where they have a limited amount of time to pursue a variety of objectives and gather strength before fighting the boss. That strength can come in the form of gear and abilities from defeating field bosses, clearing points of interest, and leveling up. That's it. Nightreign doesn't and can't supplant Elden Ring. That's not its goal. But when comparing the two, I find the foundation of this experience to be far more secure. Nightreign is willing to abandon and revise aspects of the prior titles that don't serve its focus. The result is an experience that is not without its rough edges, but with tangible virtues that extend beyond its aesthetic, an experience that is remarkably whole and polished, and hopefully one whose ambitions reach beyond the confines of its moniker as an Elden Ring spin-off game. Most of my critiques of Souls combat stand. There have been some common improvements, such as the surge sprint and this grab indicator, but enemies remain absurdly unclear. The camera and lock-on systems are still a mess, input buffering is still a thing, most weapons still behave the same because the basic dynamic of dodging while you wait for your turn to attack is unchanged, and you still fight a lot of large enemies by slicing at their ankles with an erratic, spasming camera. And while surviving nuclear explosions by rolling will always feel incredible, it only looks more and more silly as time goes on. Which may invite the question, why does this all matter so much less in Nightreign when combat itself matters so much more than it did in Elden Ring? This question has several partial answers. In part, it's because the Nightfarers themselves modify combat. Their abilities create spectrums of skillful response and create completely new possibility space. Guardian has the ability to brace his shield and block attacks that would have crushed the protagonists of prior titles, or dive into the sky and bless him and his allies with a second chance and temporary immunity. Executor steals the deflect mechanic wholesale from Sekiro with an added helping of dog. Iron Eye's archery proficiency may have single-handedly sold me on the game and lived up to the hype. And the simple change of tying spells to their casting device makes casters the most intuitive and fun they've ever been, capable of weaving combination of spells together that feel natural and creative. Duchess can use quick dodges to interrupt and continue her attack chains, and Raider's staggering attack is always viscerally satisfying and lets him keep up pressure through an enemy's turn to attack. The most vanilla and conservative character you can play in Nightreign has an explosive device on his arm that he can use to propel himself into blisteringly far leaps. While there is something lost in the removal of player custom builds, the archetypes that replace them and their bespoke designed abilities realize the playstyles that most players would create more fully than they've ever been able to make themselves. It's also, in part, that Nightreign constrains numeric variables like health and damage in ways that create experiential consistency, while also placing control of that experience, that difficulty, in the player's hands. There is a skill to managing Nightreign's leveling up. Traversing the map optimally enough to reach the max level doesn't come naturally, and even when the strategy is known, Mistakes can be made, but the effect of leveling up is apparent. It makes the fight with the Night Lord and all the enemies that lead up to it easier. There will come a point in your raids where you know that you can fight a specific enemy, and that your success or failure is a matter of your own skill, not an excessively harsh or forgiving margin for error. Elden Ring was never so kind to the player. Instances of extreme numeric imbalance, when you can't afford to make a single mistake, are isolated to your first runs, where your limited game knowledge will inevitably see you take poor fights, or to deliberate choices you make, whether out of hubris, desperation, or desire for an unforgiving challenge. Moreover, the practice yard allows you the ability to actually test out the game's options and understand how some of their most impactful underlying numbers work in practice. It's also, in part, the fact that Nightreign encourages you to replay it and makes doing so easy. Whether to experience a fight from a new playstyle or to build your understanding of them and go from surviving the fight with the Night Lord to using it as your own canvas for expression, many talk about how the process of improving is integral to the Souls experience, but that has never been more true than Nightreign. It's also, in part, because it's a multiplayer game that you can experience easily with friends. But I think the biggest part is because Nightreign tells you exactly what you're here for. There's no beautiful world full of complex denizens with politics and society that you have no choice but to massacre your way through. The world exists and it is beautiful, but it's not a place where you can scrub the enemy placements for lore significance. There's no unfulfilled promises. It's not a place that ever feels robbed by the presence of combat. It is, however, a world that feels enhanced by it. The Nightfarers don't have a choice to make. They don't have a world to explore, only an apocalypse to fight, whose names are the Night Lords. There's little that needs to be said about Nightreign's bosses. They are gorgeous opponents who each feel in their own way like a brutal war of attrition meant to wear down 3 whole players. And the enhanced versions you unlock, called the Everdark Sovereigns, are some of the most gratifying challenges From has ever given me to master. From gameplay to aesthetic to music, even at their worst, the Night Lords are FromSoft, firing on all cylinders. All of that alone would be enough to consider Nightreign greater than the sum of its parts. But Nightreign also outshines Elden Ring by investing in its story in a way that feels tangible and human. Simple text entries are punctuated by basic, limited cutscenes and dialogue using storytelling tools that I've not seen From used before. They reveal each of the Nightfarers are virtuous and conflicted in their own ways. They're afraid of things and attached to others, and despite the ethereal quality of the stories themselves and the limited details of the actual events that occur, these are some of the most human characters I've ever seen feature in a FromSoft game, and definitely the most human you've ever been able to play as. The storytelling fills the gap left by combat It uses time and silence to tell a story that's impossible to miss, but that still feels like Souls, because it doesn't seed all of its meaning from subtext. Nightreign lets you linger in the space between sword swings, to witness the world however you wish to, and to find comfort in knowing that the night is far from over. Nightreign does leave me wanting more, hoping for more out of another entry in the mainline Soul-style game, if such a thing would ever return, with a custom player character and NPCs and an overworld dotted with linear dungeons. I hope if it does, it makes multiplayer matchmaking easier, permanently removes player versus player, reduces the variance in numeric balance, and lets players intentionally author their challenge more. Because these decisions are what allow Nightreign to hone in on its strengths, and they would have prevented the accumulating frustrations from undermining the beauty of Elden Ring's world for me. I also hope it finds a way to expand the player's ability to customize their moveset and inputs, allowing them to create a more personal and expressive playstyle by integrating some of the movesets found on the Nightfarers and the abilities found in their arsenals. I hope Nightreign, Sekiro, and the unsung hero, Dark Souls 2, have by now shown the importance of allowing players to fight bosses again, especially if they're going to remain the centerpiece of the style. I hope whatever story comes next isn't afraid to be overt, and is more robust in taking advantage of all the storytelling tools that FromSoft has accumulated over the years. Because when they are well told, and even sometimes when they're not, I love FromSoft's stories. As for Nightreign itself, I'm excited. I'm excited for new bosses and new characters, and to wrap my head around the special mode that adds even further escalation to the difficulty. I'm also excited by the potential fun to be had with the idea of a spinoff, to see what kinds of gameplay From is willing to pursue when untethered by the need to keep things narratively or tonally consistent. I have my frustrations, but Nightreign is such a well-knit piece of design that I'm more than able to accept those flaws, because they come hand in hand with one of the best multiplayer fantasy combat games I've ever played. And that leaves me content wanting more. Thanks for watching.